Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Forgot where I was again. It's not the keynote. Good morning. We wanted to take the opportunity to have a panel and a discussion with you guys as well around what the idea of smart cities is. So my name's Steve Adler. I'm the EVP of Sales for NXP Semiconductors. And our job is to try and bring technology, as we discussed earlier in the keynote, is to bring technology to companies and governments to be able to bring these smarter cities, what is a smarter city, forward much faster. And it's a big challenge. So many of the challenges are how you integrate not just the city itself, but it's all the companies and the infrastructure and the service providers together to bring meaningful solutions to us in our daily lives so that we're able to actually benefit from it. One of the things that Rick mentioned is the challenge then of the financing. So how do you bring that together as well? Something Rudy and I were talking about earlier, Rudy Stroh sat on the end, is how do you do that without governments getting involved and legislating, providing money, companies deciding for the greater good to go make this happen. It's a big challenge. That's some of the things that we're going to get talked about in the panel here this morning. I'd like to introduce Kahn, CEO and President of the IoT Consortium, to moderate this panel and share some color on this particular topic and how we go from smart-ish cities to fully connected and secure smart cities. Greg.
Terrific. Thank you, Steve, and welcome everybody. Steve mentioned I'm Greg Kahn, the President and CEO of the Internet of Things Consortium, which is a nonprofit that was formed to help facilitate the growth of the IoT industry between different industry verticals. And connected cities is one of the elements of the IoT Consortium. And I'm thrilled to have a esteemed group of panelists here today. Starting to my left, Kurt Sievers, the EVP of Automotive at NXP. To his left, Mayor Steve Adler, the Mayor of Austin. To his left, Jerry Davis, the CIO of NASA AMES. And on my far left, Rudy Stroh, the EVP of Security and Connectivity at NXP. Welcome, everybody. Want to just start, if we could, at the end, if everyone could just briefly describe their role. And as a second part to that, how do you define connected cities?
Do you want me to start, yeah?
Please.
My phone works? No, it doesn't. Maybe somebody else starts. Now it works. It starts. Oh, okay, can escape. I'm Rudy Stroh. I'm responsible for the security and connectivity business at NXP. And yeah, we drive pretty much the secure connection for the smarter world and smarter cities. I mean, they're not so smart today. We have a lot of devices. They are kind of connected. But I think there is a huge potential to really, as Rick said earlier today, to change how people work, live, and play. And we have actually quite a few elements at NXP to go and help driving this. And I guess we get in a little bit more detail later on.
I'm Jerry Davis. I'm the CIO at AMES Research Center, which is out in Silicon Valley area, Northern California. We don't necessarily build smart cities, but we do do a tremendous amount of technology transfer from our space program that you'll see in your everyday life, and one of those areas is within connected cities. If I was to define kind of a connected city, the way we would look at it from a NASA perspective and the technology that we would deploy into those areas is largely about efficiency and sustainability. That's an area that we focus on significantly at NASA, and some of the technology that's derived at NASA that's in the connected cities environments that you see around the world. And like I said, there's everyday uses that you may find, whether it's be from the health side, transportation, utilities, that sort of thing. There's a lot of technology that we've driven into your everyday lives that with a focus on efficiency and sustainability. So that's how I would kind of characterize it.
Mayor Adler?
I think I would probably define a connected city, or what is a connected city, as a city that captures and processes moments. Every moment of everything produces data and information. And a connected city, to varying degrees, is capturing that data associated with that moment and trying to manipulate and use that data. From a city's perspective, it's to increase efficiency or sustainability, resiliency, equity, opportunity. In a city like Austin, Texas, where things are going so incredibly well in so many ways, first on so many lists, fastest growing city in the country, has been for the last 5 years. Number one on lots of lists, is also the city that is the most economically segregated city in the country. The divergence in population, those that are participating and those that are not, is growing wider in our city. We have a built-out infrastructure system that is going to be hard for us to add to because the money and the space don't exist. So connected city, the concept of being able to capture and manipulate data becomes a salvation for a city like Austin, which is in danger of losing its spirit and its soul unless it figures this out. So it's existential to the city.
Well, I guess I would start defining a smart city from the people's perspective, from the people who hopefully want to live in that city. And I guess then there is 4 things which would characterize the place I would love to live. It's got to be safe and secure. It's got to be clean and convenient. And these 4 elements play very much to where NXP is leading with what we call secure connections for a smarter world. Now, from a specific automotive perspective, and I don't like the word automotive actually, we should rather talk about mobility or transportation in this context. I would actually say most cities today are exactly the opposite of being clean, safe, secure, and convenient. So we have a hell of a job to do to absolutely move this to the opposite of what it is today. The good news, however, is, and I think that should be good news for all the people running cities, it is not about building infrastructure with concrete and steel, which is expensive, which takes time, and which is bulky. But we are absolutely convinced we can do this by electronic solutions, which are smart, which are quick, and which are actually readily available. I mean, down here we are showing hundreds of demos which are all playing to this, and it's so easy to install them as compared to steel and concrete infrastructure.
Mayor Adler, we're going to start with you. You mentioned Austin is the fastest growing city in the country. Innovation at the city level requires a significant amount of collaboration between many agencies and organizations. What steps have you taken to provide an atmosphere that fosters this collaboration?
We're the fastest growing metropolitan area as opposed to city over the last 5 years. And the collaboration is critical in this city. Government is not doesn't have an R&D arm. Government is not going to be the source of innovation. Government doesn't have the expertise that the private market has to gather that data and find the best uses for that data. So I think that the government's role and the city's role is to provide the best opportunity for testing ground for new technologies and new innovations, a new way to capture data, a new way to use that data. And that's what we're trying to do. Austin, Texas is where Cars to Go did their North American launch. And we did that by not coming up with rules and regulations to govern an industry, but to sit with a user and say, what will it take for you to be able to test what you're trying to do in a way that still promotes, still is consistent with the fundamental duties of a city. This is where Google Car is testing its automated vehicles on our roads as we speak. For a city out of California where that was happening in a live kind of way. But you know, this is Austin, Texas. This is where the first tweet happened just a few years ago. And we'd like to think that with Michael Dell, we reinvented the assembly line in a hotel room, and with John Mackey, reinvented what grocery stores look like. And Alamo Drafthouse is reinventing what movie and a date is all about. So I think it's providing that testing ground. It's providing that and then getting out of the way and doing everything we can to facilitate that innovation infrastructure, the ecosystem of innovation in our community.
Thank you. Jerry, over to you. NASA plays a very important role in testing. How does NASA transition developing game-changing technologies and bring them down to earth, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. So within NASA, we have a number of programs that it's focused on technology transfer. It's actually in our charter, in NASA's charter, to take whatever technology that is derived out of our space programs and put it back out into the community as part of a technology transfer program. And I like to say to folks that contrary to popular belief, we did not develop Tang, Velcro, or Teflon. But at any rate, if you've ever used or know someone that has used clear braces, that is a technology that came from NASA, that ceramic. When you see folks who are endurance athletes, maybe marathons, triathlons, things of that nature, and they put on the space blankets afterwards, you're welcome. And when you get a good night's sleep when you're sleeping on that memory foam, that came from NASA as well. So there's a number of technologies that we don't develop specifically for the constituency that we develop for our space programs. They're then licensed and spun off as part of NASA technology transfer program. One of the other areas, the key areas that we connect with folks on the technology transfer program is through the small business innovation research program that we have, where we work with small businesses on innovative ideas, and we then license that technology that we may have to them. So that's where things like, for instance, some of the technology that came out of that are things like cordless power tools. Back in the 60s, we didn't actually develop the cordless power tools for the Apollo program. It was actually done by Black & Decker, but we worked very closely with Black & Decker for power tools that we're going to use when we went to the moon, and that specifically spun off into broader and broader programs around the power tools. So our space technology transfer program is an area where we bring things down that we use in our space programs to the everyday user. And then our basic, what we just call technology transfer program that we have, that's a very broad worldwide program that we use in order to get technology into the hands of the consumer.
Thanks, Jerry. Rudy, tons of opportunities in this space, that's clear. There are also a lot of challenges. What do you see as the biggest challenge from NXP's perspective in implementing a more connected environment for citizens?
Yeah, as the mayor said, I mean, urbanization is a big deal, right? People are moving to cities, many obviously to Austin, right? And it's a trend, but with this trend, you also have challenges in the cities. There's just more people, right? Transport becomes a much bigger deal, and we should move from here to China and see what they're doing, because they have this as a very accelerated trend. And people moving to large cities, public transport become a real big deal. They have created an infrastructure with our products where you have a contactless infrastructure. You don't need to plug your ticket anymore when you go into a train. You're actually moving it on the phone in the meanwhile. We're moving this in 10 big cities. We go on public transport on mobile phones. If you go to this hotel here and you check in and you get your key, you probably also could just go with your phone and take it with NFC and open the door. We have the same technology that you're using in your card in our phones. We're making this available in certain parts of the world. Going to the doctor, for example, you still need to wait in line and sit there in the office. So we're helping to communicate with the doctor's office directly. What do all these things have in common? You would probably not want your data to go somewhere where you don't know where your doctor information goes, right? You probably don't want somebody else to go in your hotel room. Yeah? And it's the same with the connected car. The security of the cars is important, because if they are connected, they're also kind of vulnerable to an attack. So I think the biggest challenge that we can solve, at least parts of it, I don't think we have all the security, but we do have secure solutions today to enable all the things that I just mentioned. There's obviously ecosystem partners that we're working with many governments around the world. One of the challenges is that legislation, the rules, the laws that we have are from the analog world, and we're moving to the digital world. And so we working on with governments, and we say security and privacy by design. That's what we're driving from NXP. Yeah. So I think the largest challenge is really move the legislation to the level where we want to go in the smart cities. And then I think security. People will not trust many solutions, right? So we will continue to advance it, and that's where we really can add to help the smarter city.
Thank you, Rudy. Kurt, we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. As an industry, when we talk about autonomous vehicles, we often talk about cars. Some press came out this week about in China that they're moving towards autonomous trucks and buses. Do you see that as a transition in the US that's going to take place? And from your perspective, we just brought up the security issue. What potential concerns do we have to consider if we're going to move towards that type of transportation?
Well, let me talk about the concerns, but I rather talk about the benefits because they outweigh the concerns by far. Still, certainly the main concern is, as Rudy said, security. And security actually in two different ways. One is privacy concerns. So, of course, if your car is fully connected, there is a concern you can be tracked any single minute. What have you done when? Secondly, and beyond privacy, it's the threat of being hacked. And I think especially in the US last year, there was the cheap hacks, which are worrying, right? I mean, so certainly security, and Rudy spoke to this, is the foundation of trust. And if there is no trust in technology, people will never use technology. So clearly that has to be addressed. But I believe maybe we haven't done a good enough job so far because we do have the technology to address it. I mean, it's not a lack of technology, it's not a lack of capability. It's more that there have been two big walls between different industries. Rudy has been supplying successfully the highest and best levels of security to electronic government, like e-passports, which we all use. I mean, we don't worry, we use them, we love them. He's also doing it into payment. And we all use payment, actually even mobile payment now. But for some reason, the automotive industry has never thought about using the same level of security. So it's not that the technology wasn't available, it's just a matter of bringing down the walls between these different industries. Now, NXP is in a fantastic position to do so because we are serving both industries and can apply it. So far to the, let's say, to the concerns. Think about the benefits. I mean, and that's a mental shift which we all have to do. When I said it has to be safe, it has to be secure, it has to be clean and convenient. You could do all of this by just building more lanes on the roads in a city. So if you had enough space, you could just make the roads even bigger and bigger and bigger. But trust me, you could never keep up with the traffic which comes up. It's like a processor and software. So the more lanes you would build, the more people you would attract to drive. So it just gets worse and worse. So this is really a dilemma where the way out is just to mentally get away from steel and concrete infrastructure to electronic infrastructure and use what we have more intelligently, more smartly. I mean, the word smart cities has a reason. It is, amongst others, about using the existing infrastructure in a much smarter way. And that comes back to autonomous vehicles, or I would rather say digitally coupled vehicles, which are just making much better use of the existing infrastructure. And that shouldn't be a concern, it should be actually a big relief. I mean, if I could go to work every morning, first of all, faster, and secondly, maybe I could read newspaper in the car and do my text messages without risking an accident, that's much better, isn't it?
So let's stay on the theme of benefits. Mayor Adler, back to you. Experts in IoT have shared that improving transportation acts as a ladder of opportunity. You mentioned the challenges in Austin about different types of economic classes coming into being, but there's a huge opportunity here, as has been shared. How do you envision smart cities benefiting all these segments of the population, even those that are less economically privileged?
I think there's a huge opportunity. I will say first real quickly that I'm heartbroken to learn that NASA didn't invent Teflon and Tang. I don't even know what to do with that. And on buses, you know, Atlantic Magazine, April a year ago, the headline was autonomous buses no time soon. And then in October, the headline in Atlantic had the picture of the autonomous bus in China, which gave then defining no time soon in today's world is 6 months. The opportunity for cities and technology is huge, especially with respect to the challenges that have proven unable to solve absent the technology. So as you have more and more people that are moving into cities, and you have suburbanization of poverty, the equity issues, the quality of life issues that drive a city become harder and harder to achieve. Mobility becomes a huge problem in a city like Austin because people can't move around. Congestion is so great that if you live in Austin, really the only place you really want to live if you can is close or inside downtown so you can avoid the traffic. And as soon as you do that, you start pushing up the values, property values, because you run into a supply and demand disequilibrium. San Francisco last year became the first city in the country where the median home price went over $1 million. Seattle and Boston, peer cities to Austin, saw themselves on that train, trying to get off that train, can't get off that train, have now crested $500,000. Austin is still just below $300,000. In our city, we believe that because we're creative and innovative here, because the technology is hitting at the right time, but the ability to be able to move people around the city. We have populations that if they have a job opportunity available to them in a city where many people can get to their jobs in 20 minutes, they're now looking at 2-hour commutes. You can't be competitive in a city when it takes you that long to move around. We have healthcare outcomes that are determined by zip code in this city because it's not accessible to people in different parts of our city. These are quality of life issues that drive diversity and equity in a city. In a city like Austin, that is who it is because of its diversity, because we have artists and creatives. We have a culture in the city we will lose with the mobility challenges we have in this city. The issue of not being able to build roads, we know all too well. So we have to be able to use the infrastructure that we have more efficiently than we do, or in different ways than we do if we're to save the city. So the equity issues loom so big. I'm excited about the Smart City Challenge that the Secretary of Transportation has initiated. And thank you, by the way, to NXP for being such a core participant on the Austin application, which is being submitted, even though we know we share you with some other cities.
We want to make you win.
Okay. But this is a challenge that has been designed by someone who is Secretary of Transportation but is not a transportation person. This is a former mayor of a city. This is someone that at his heart and his roots is trying to solve real problems on the ground for real people in terms of equity and opportunity, ladders of opportunity, helping people be able to move from poverty situations into the middle class. That's the goal. This is not a challenge that's about new technologies. It's not about shiny pennies. What it is about is actually taking those technologies and finding the application. This is about what is the point of battle and transformation that exists in this industry today. Technologies have existed. How do we transition from the technologies as a shiny penny to the technologies as a tool? Where the secretary in this challenge has basically said, don't lead with the technologies that are really cool that you're going to try. Lead with what is the challenge in your community you're going to try to solve. Tell me how you're going to measure success against that challenge. And then, only then, tell me what technologies you're going to employ in order to move that needle. This is a competition, a challenge that is based exclusively on application of technologies. And as a mayor of a city who ultimately gets graded not on shiny pennies, but on whether you have improved equity and opportunity, whether people are moving in your city, whether there's opportunity that's granted, whether you maintain and save diversity in your city, whether you preserve quality of life, that is the only thing that I get graded on. And So this point in this competition, but also in the debate internationally on technologies right now technologies are the cavalry riding over the hill. And we need that because we need the problems solved.
Thank you. Jerry, speaking of ladders of opportunity, NASA has a variety of shared interests in technologies that are essential to this conversation, connected cities. What avenues are there for city officials to partner with NASA to work together to either test or to implement this technology, not the shiny toy, but something that is sustainable for the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a number of programs. I think our biggest program is our partnerships program. It's international and it's also local, where you enter into an agreement that could be no exchange of money whatsoever. It's actually an exchange of maybe it's NASA has a facility and you have a particular skill set that you would like to bring in and work on a shared common problem. Maybe it's in the area of autonomy. Maybe it's in the area of AI. Maybe it's machine learning, things like that. So our partnership program is huge within NASA. We do partnerships with just about anybody and everybody. I've sat with heads of foreign countries. I've sat with some of the titans of industries, folks like at Google and Facebook, and we too are working with Google on our autonomous vehicles. They actually run them at our research center up there at AMES in the evenings. We're doing the same type of work with Nissan in their autonomous vehicles and working with them on the AI side of the house. I think one of the key things, and this goes back to the last question, one of the key things that has come out of our partnerships, it's all about, like the mayor said, application of technology. So NASA, when you get on an airplane and you fly from one destination to another, we like to say NASA is flying with you. One of the things that we're doing is working on traffic congestion in a national airspace. Right, it's a huge problem for the United States and the congestion. And it's not just commercial airlines. Now we're looking at bringing in unmanned aerial systems into the national airspace. And there's really no mechanism for the FAA to do that or to manage that. So what NASA has done is we have designed software that is used in every air traffic control tower that uses AI principles that will reroute aircrafts when the airspace gets too crowded. And it's sort of a traffic management activity. What we've also done is taking that application, that work, and bring it down to the city level and said, well, if we can use it for aircraft separation in the aviation, why couldn't we do it on the ground for cars and vehicles? So take that technology, that software, and apply it to traffic management inside of a city or a locality. So those are some of the work that we've done in the partnership arena to help build things like smart cities and the technology that we have, seeing that technology being applied to solve similar problems. And I think that partnership is a great area for that to foster and incubate.
Thank you. Kurt, over to you. As Jerry and Mayor Adler said, improving traffic flow definitely helps out in terms of making cities and metropolitan areas more accessible to all parts of the population. Technology companies are shaping the rules of the driverless road, and NXP is playing a big part in that. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing in your role?
Well, we are actually, I think, at the foundation of all of this. We are the largest chip company in the automotive industry. And more than 90% of the innovation in mobility, transportation, and automotive in general is based on electronics. I mean, there's a little bit mechanics still, a little bit about materials, but the vast majority is about electronics. So we are right in the middle of this innovation. I would almost say disruptive innovation currently taking place in that industry. One of the big things, which is very central, we just announced yesterday, which is this blue box announcement, which I think was discussed earlier in the press conference of Rick, which is actually a complete, say, ADAS/autonomous vehicle system on an electronic hardware and software basis, complete system. So there is nobody else who has the capability, nor the competence, nor being that far as we are in showing this to the world. What it is it's a scalable system which has all of the different sensors to digitally sense the environment, and then the processing power in the middle, the brain, as we say, to take the right decision if and when the car is really autonomous. So doing it actually better than you or I could do. Faster, more precise, since, unfortunately, it's a matter of fact, most of these fatalities, we always talk about the 1.3 million road fatalities worldwide, most of them are caused by human error. It is actually a matter of fact that it's not the car which is guilty for it, but it's just the driver which did something wrong, was distracted or whatever. So our electronic solutions will make sure that the machine actually takes over eventually and does that better than we could do it. Now, of course, there is a lot of way in between. It's not going to be from one day to the other that everything is being autonomous. But the machines, the smartness of the electronics will help on the way in between. Let me give you a more specific example, which we do here in Austin. And thanks again also from our side, because it is about applications. It is about finding test beds for the technology which we have, which is this connected vehicle technology. Many people these days talk about autonomous vehicles that they need radar and camera systems. But these two technologies have a significant limitation. They work within line of sight. So the best camera on the planet and the best radar system on the planet will not be able to see around corners. It will not be able to see, say, 2 miles out or through 10 cars which are ahead of you. This is where our innovation of connecting cars to each other and connecting cars through infrastructure over a distance of 1.5 to 2 miles at very high speeds, fully operational, makes a big difference. Because what it means is that your car will speak and will listen to other cars in a circle around you with a, say, 1.5 to 2 miles distance. And if there is any hazard in that circle or anything which needs to become communicated to your car, you will learn it. And you will learn it faster than your eyes or your camera or your radar system could ever see it. And that's the trick behind making traffic so much more easy and safe in a city. That technology is on the road here in Austin. We actually have down here a little, it looks like a Golf caddy car where we have it built in. It connects also to infrastructure like traffic lights, so we can make a green wave work in the city. So, which is why I'm so happy what you said. I mean, we do have the technology, it is standardized, it works, it's right there. But we need the space to bring it to people, because in the end it's about bringing value to people. And here in Austin, we are right away doing it.
So let's go on that theme a little bit about value to people. We're moving very quickly towards smarter cities in the US, and thanks to all of you for this competition, which I think is spurring so much excitement in the country. But there's not a ton of education in a lot of local territories on the consumer level for them to really see and understand the changes that are taking place. What do you think we need to do as an industry to better educate consumers as to what these technological advancements can do for their lives?
Just double checking. Yeah, I think I had the other day a little interview round with, I don't know, 20 to 25-year-old, and we talked about security. It was a young leadership forum, and they said, we don't trust all this stuff anyway. Everybody has my data, forget your security concept. Everybody takes our data, whether it's Facebook, whether it's whatever social media people use. And then we discussed a little bit how we're advancing in using technology. Today, Facebook probably doesn't matter, right? Somebody said, I don't care that somebody knows my blood type, but I do care if somebody can change my blood type in my files somewhere. And I think it comes down to, can we have secure identities? And can we make sure that nobody can manipulate them? When you travel, many came here probably from somewhere outside, and you go at the airports today, and you use your passport. In the US, it's called global entry. In other parts in the world, you should think about us in the future, because that's what we enable. And you have never put your passport there and it said you're the cousin of bin Laden, right? No, it's always your data. We protect the data that nobody can manipulate this. That's, I think, is the key in devices that you carry around. And if you look at the mobile application in payment today, that's the same level of security that we have in your passport. Nobody can manipulate the data. We secure the data itself, and we also make sure that you have the data flow. secured with our technology. And I think that's probably at the heart of everything, to get momentum. If you look, government services, we talked about urbanization, we talk digitization of governments. Why do I need to go to the DMV and stand in line forever? We have secure identification today, and there's countries in the world who do this, where you have 5 offices in 5 million people cities, if you go to China. You can identify with your ID card, we create a secure connection, and you go online, and you can do government services yourself. All this stuff is going to come, and we're using it more or less, but I think at the heart it's really, can we secure the data, can we secure the data flow, and do people trust the solution that we have?
Data is clearly the opportunity area in this space. When implementing smart city infrastructure, the question becomes with consumers, can you convince people to give up some autonomy for a specific benefit? So in other words, being able to keep high pollutant generators offline by installing sensitive meters that can take their air conditioning offline from afar. How do we convince those individuals to do that, to allow, to give up some of that autonomy? Do we need to provide some compensation to consumers in order for that value exchange to take place?
I think it's more generational than anything else. I have this conversation with my 3 daughters, now 32, 30, and 25, and they're predisposed to sharing data because they believe that that sharing that data improves the quality of their life. They believe at some level and hope, perhaps blindly, that data is not manipulable in a way that could come back and haunt them, but they're willing to take that risk in ways that my generation normally won't. I'm not sure that ultimately you can compensate the public sufficiently to be able to share that data. I think that it's going to be because the public sees a bargained for exchange associated with sharing that data. It's going to require feeling good about the security interest at a baseline, but somebody who sees that if they allow their home air conditioning system to be modulated in their absence will save them significant money over the course of a month because it'll be operated a lot more efficiently, then are going to be more inclined to do that. And I think you'll see a greater adopter level as us old folks die off and as the younger folks become more prevalent in making those mass buying decisions.
I want to leave, thank you, Mayor Adler. I want to leave some opportunity for the panelists, for the audience to ask questions. So if you wouldn't mind raising your hand and just share which company you're with, and we'll start here.
Hi, Mike Krill with More Insights and Strategy. So we're talking about smart connected cities. We've talked a lot about mobility and transportation, but let me back this up a little bit and ask this question. Being pragmatic about the whole thing, I'm kind of one of those guys who says you need to get a few wins under your belt. What do we think the low-hanging fruit is, the first couple applications that we can actually roll out and call them smart connected cities so we can convince people like me who live in the city of Austin to give more money to the city to advance, what we think the rest of the smart connected city is. So what do we think those first applications or low-hanging fruit are that people will really appreciate and like?
So I'm not living here, but I could imagine you are plagued by trucks being stuck in congestion in the city. Like every city has the same problem. So what we could certainly offer is truck convoys, so we call it platooning, including green waves. So that's really smart to the extent that the trucks are being connected one to each other, which lets them, by the way, drive with very close distances, so you save a lot of space on the roads. Secondly, you could guide them through the city with a green wave because they would be coupled to the traffic lights, and the traffic light would only go back to red once the last truck has passed the traffic light, which makes a huge difference when you think about noise, when you think about pollution. and when you think actually about congestion, which is often caused by trucks. Now, this, you have it under the belt. I mean, the technology is right here. It works. It's been demonstrated in other places. For me, that would be one of the elements which could be rolled out right away. And it's relatively cheap because from an infrastructure perspective, it is indeed only electronics. It's putting a couple of small boxes, and we can demo them here, on existing traffic lights. It's not like you have to rebuild the whole thing. It's just about equipping the existing infrastructure with new technology.
Yeah, maybe I can add to it on the public transport side. We're doing this stuff that I'm describing in China. 10 large cities. We have implemented in 2 cities. I can't remember which one. Steve would know. But this is happening today, that you use your smartphone for different services. And it's not a dream to go to the hotel and not stand after a long distance flight at the check-in and go straight to your room, as long as you have a clear identity on your phone and as long as nobody can manipulate this. I think in a smart home, every time I come home, and I'm thinking, why do I need to push any button? Why does my door, my garage door or my home door not recognize I'm there? I need to put my bag down and unlock it. There is technology there today for the smart home that will allow you this. Once again, if you have secure identities and you trust that your identity in the phone is really, really secure, that nobody can manipulate it, then we use this stuff. When we look in smart homes today, and if you go to Home Depot and buy all the stuff that you can buy there, and you try to install it, and we did this, and actually it was a bit of a mess because it takes a few PhDs and it takes you a long time to integrate this. When you go to our tech lab, you will see how we're integrating these things so that the user experience is much, much better. So I think one of the things that we have to improve, and that is a hardware-software combination, get the security in there, get the integration of connectivity. You don't care how you get connected. So that's an easy install for you, like you take a smartphone today and you can just play with it and do your stuff, right? So I think public transport, smart homes, moving from multi-applications, or multiple cards that you have into the phone and have one application in there that you can use. I think these things will come. The US is just moving, is probably one of the last countries on the planet, from Mac stripes in payment to a chip, and you all hate it because it's so slow. Well, then go to mobile payment and you will see it's much, much faster than anything you've ever seen before. So that transition is happening, and I think over the next years, we will not stick your card anymore in the phone, we will go contactless. And that's what China is doing. And I'm emphasizing this because they took the best technology they could find in the world and have this infrastructure. We have a legacy and we have an infrastructure, but once it goes contactless, there's many applications beside payment that you can do. So I think there's more happening than we probably see. Is it going as fast as we would like to see it? No, I think there's more technology than we deploy today, but as the mayor said, it costs also quite a bit of money, and that has to be sorted out too.
So the question goes to a degree on what's the low-hanging fruit with respect to mobility. The things that we're moving forward in this city includes wayfinding measures to find parking spaces that may not be based on sensors, but based on algorithm. The ability to have the traffic signals be able to respond in real time to traffic movement that's directly underneath them, to talk to the cars around them, to be able to incorporate events that are happening in the neighborhood when the football game lets out, so that you can make real-time decisions with respect to traffic signalization. It is the ability to be able to have one card or one app that you can identify where you are and where you want to go, that sets out for you what your options are in a city to be able to get from one place to another, that'll make arrangements on that app for whichever system you chose, and can purchase your ticket from beginning to end across platform and providers. All those things are real things that are being implemented right now.
We have a question in the front here.
Yes, Nina Turner from IDC. So we talked about, you talked about low-hanging fruit. I want to go the opposite direction and talk about city goals. You know, when you look at cities, you have aging infrastructure, you've got water, you've got old gas pipes, you've got sewers, and pollution and those sort of things. When you look at your goal setting for your smart cities, what are your top, I guess, problems that you're looking to address not with the short-term goals, but with the longer-term, smart city technologies?
I think ultimately you're asking a quality of life issue. And every city is probably going to define that differently. For us in Austin, Texas, I think it's about growing in a way that preserves opportunity for everyone. It's maintaining diversity in a city. It's maintaining opportunity and access in a city. It's being able to remain a diverse and exciting and vibrant and innovative place for everyone. We're blessed in this city with so many people doing so well. But Austin, Texas has a spirit and soul which is magical and has been since I got here 40 years ago, and we're in a fight for that spirit and soul. The issues that you talk about, loom, water, looms, use of resources, loom, and those are all things that, like any city in the world, and certainly in the Southwest, we're going to have to be able to address. But we have a little bit of a lead on those. What we're doing right now is we're losing people in communities, and we have to fight that.
That concludes our panel today. I'd like to thank Mayor Adler, Jerry, Kurt, and Rudy for today's session, and thank you.
Thank you. Very good.